Meta's AI behemoth just stalled again. And now the $72 billion question is, what's all this spending really buying? Llama 4 was supposed to be a GPT-4 killer, but with delays, weak gains, and internal doubt, it's starting to look more like a high-cost hype machine. The era of just scale it may be hitting its wall, and fast. Watch the full video, because not every AI giant is ready to roar.
Moving forward on to thing number 3, we're talking Meta now in their AI space and their Llama platform. We're seeing that that's not advancing as quickly as they would hope. We're seeing that maybe Meta's AI program not as big or as tough as we thought. Thing number 3, Gary, Meta AI hits a rough patch. Tell us what's going on with their Llama 4 model, Behemoth.
So this delay, as you just pointed out, Rob, relates to its Llama 4 model, and it's called the Behemoth model because it is enormous. The model supposedly features 400 billion parameters. That's more than 5 times the size of Llama 2's largest version, and it was supposed to be positioned to compete with OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini. But what happened was they were supposed to release it in April, then they were supposed to release it in June. Now it's been postponed. As of now, we have not seen a new release date. And the reason is there are internal concerns that the performance gains are not sufficient to warrant deployment, right? If you're going to release a whole new model, you really need to have much better performance. Otherwise, people say, well, this is not exciting at all. Internal reviews there that have been publicly released or leaked. They cite poor inference efficiency. By the way, inference, that's the thing that models like DeepSeek are really good at, although they don't save energy despite what, DeepSeek had said. But back to the Llama 4 model. So poor inference efficiency, underwhelming accuracy improvements, growing skepticism among Meta's engineers. Basically, with this kind of delay, there's leadership frustration, increased scrutiny of their broader AI roadmap. The whole thing really leads people to question the possible inefficiency of future or further scaling. And people are starting to wonder, wait a minute, if they pour tens of billions of dollars of resources into the next model and we're getting diminishing returns, right, then maybe scale isn't the guarantee of meaningful progress in generative AI that we had hoped it would be. And Meta, I think their budget this year for capital expenditures is $72 billion. That's an enormous number. And a lot of that's directed at AI. So, they really need to get something out of this.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. What, Gary, the implications of, okay, these models, how does that kind of impact other AI models? Obviously, knowing Meta's place in the space and the tech space as a leader, are they going to have enough information to help train that next generation of AI? Or does this kind of stall that progress, knowing how big of a player Meta is in the AI space already?
So I think that's the right question to ask, Rob. Now, at this point, a lot of the other hyperscalers, whether it's ChatGPT or Google's Gemini, they are making progress. And Meta running into delays on their model doesn't necessarily mean, oh no, the whole thing is worthless. Um, but I would just make 2 points. The first one is we've previously expressed a concern that many of the companies spending tens of billions of dollars on AI don't yet have a business model to earn a return on that spending. And that's something that we've been really focused on. Like, great, you're spending tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, but whether it works or not is one question. But even if it does work, you need a business model to get paid on it. The other thing, and this is a really interesting question to me. I've read reports that some of these models are running out of material to train on. And so the way these models work is they actually crawl millions and millions of articles and books and research papers and posts on Twitter or X or Facebook or wherever they can get information, wherever human beings are communicating and writing. Um, but we're at the point now, Rob, where some of these models are actually crawling the vast majority of human written communication that's been done before this. And
Mhm.
so they actually need to work on efficiency and having these models getting better at drawing conclusions because they're actually running out of material to train them on. And I know that sounds crazy, but these are companies with literally hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA's best chips, or sometimes even millions of NVIDIA's best chips. They are chewing through that material as quickly as it can be produced. And at this point, they've chewed through pretty much everything they can get their hands on, whether it's a book, a research paper, DKI's five things, everything. They're just running out of material to throw at these models.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, Gary. And I'm going to go a little off topic and project here. Is I think part of it as well. It's like Google's so interesting from a search standpoint because it's constantly adding that new material to the web, right? Which is being crawled. Now, one of the things that we focus on the marketing side is SEO. You're hearing, and like, okay, when we do post that content on the website, how do we get Google to come and look at it as quickly as possible? But the nice part for Google is that it has a constantly refilling index library of content and information, right? To where some of these other channels, like a Meta, they might be restricted, as you're saying, to where how much information they have or where are they sourcing that information. So just an interesting tidbit from my side, thinking about what you're saying in the content exhaustion. But that's where I think, people talk about this AI and overtaking Google search very quickly, but they forget, as you've mentioned, it's being trained on a finite amount of data and information, at least initially, until they start to roll out these new iterations. So it'll be very interesting to see those two battle it out, Google and Meta of the world, which I know we're going to talk about Google here in a second. But just
So,
an
Rob,
interesting my
it,
side.
it is, and a little bit of a yes and no on your point. So you're completely right that Google, they're updating their SEO models every single day. And there's so much new information and so many new web pages that they're crawling those constantly. And then, as you well know, Google has a habit of changing the algorithm, the search algorithm. And that's a
Mm,
huge advantage for you and companies like Flying V because, like I don't spend all day figuring out how these models work and how to optimize, how to do search engine optimization, SEO. You guys do that on a daily basis, and Google is changing those models quickly enough that it
yeah.
can become frustrating and a waste of time for me to do it. But your expertise in that area is a competitive advantage, and that's great for Flying V. And it feels like that's a lot, and it's a lot in the SEO world, but the amount of information being added to the web on a daily basis and these kinds of changes is not enough to change like an LLM, a large language model processor like Llama 4 or ChatGPT or Google Gemini. It's not enough to change those. Like literally, they're looking at hundreds of billions of components. So a day or a week or a month's worth of new web content isn't enough to push the needle on the LLMs or the AI
Mm.
models.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's crazy just to think about the I still struggle. I'm in this day to day, right? And you still struggle with just the vastness when we talk about this information. Obviously, that goes to our conversations we've had about nuclear and our points there with AI and chips
Oh
and
yeah.
the acceleration of if you've got good technology, what happens? People use it more and more and more, right? More demand and more need.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
can
good.
certainly tell you we are going to be talking about nuclear power and uranium, nuclear energy in next week's Five Things. That is already queued up. There's too much going on. It's far too important. So, for those of you who are worried you'll forget, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notifications, and we will be talking about that important topic next week.